Hi again, Risa here, back with another episode of Ask Risa. This is my weekly video series where I discuss some common wedding planning questions and problems that you might be having if you're trying to plan your own wedding. There are a bunch of other videos in this series which you can find either on my YouTube channel or on my IGTV on Instagram. Last week I was talking about wedding bar options and different ways you can do a bar. You can either do beer and wine only, or you can do a full bar with everything, or you can do beer plus wine plus signature cocktails. So this week I want to dive deeper into the signature cocktails and talk a little bit more about what those are, how to choose them, and why you might want to offer them at your wedding. Signature cocktails are basically the most cost-effective way and the easiest way to incorporate liquor into your wedding. As I mentioned last week, having a full bar is fine if you are having your wedding at a place where the bar is already there. So if you're getting married at a hotel or a country club or some sort of venue where they already have all the liquor on hand, you're not bringing the liquor in, they're just charging you consumption based on what your guests drank. That's fine if you want to do a full bar in one of those circumstances. But if you're somewhere else where you're going to be bringing in all this stuff, full bar is more trouble and expense than it is worth for you. So signature cocktails are a great way to still have some cocktails, but not have all the trouble of the full bar. The other thing I like about signature cocktails is it's a way for you to personalize your wedding. I mean, everybody wants their wedding to reflect themselves, and they want it to have some of their personality. So serving cocktails that you and your fiancé really like goes a long way toward injecting your personality into your wedding. So with the signature cocktail, generally speaking, those are the only cocktails that are available at your wedding. Usually we do two. Oftentimes they're known as the bride's cocktail, the groom's cocktail, or his and hers. Obviously, if you're having a same-sex wedding, you don't want to use those particular terms because it's confusing. If you have two brides' cocktails, how are we supposed to know which cocktail goes with which bride? If you have his and his cocktails, again, we don't know which one is the first groom and which one is the second groom. So in that case, I generally recommend using first names as the cocktail, like Steve's cocktail and Jim's cocktail or something like that. Or you can come up with clever punny names if you want to. I've had clients do that, base their signature cocktails off of different family members or things like that. I had a couple once serve a Greyhound, which is basically vodka and grapefruit juice, but they changed it to a Dachshund because they had a Dachshund. So you can do stuff like that. If you're gonna change the name of a well-known cocktail, it is definitely best to have the ingredients listed out on your bar menu, because everybody who likes Greyhounds, the drink, is gonna know what a Greyhound is. No one is gonna know what a Dachshund is because that's not a real drink. So if you're gonna change the name of your Greyhound to the Dachshund, just make sure you also put the ingredients on there so people know what it is that they are ordering. So if you are doing a full bar, you can still have signature cocktails if you want to, but keep in mind that people are probably less likely to order the signature cocktails if there's a whole panoply of other cocktails available. Like if I can go to a wedding and gin and tonic's my go-to drink, if I can get a gin and tonic, I'm probably just gonna order a gin and tonic as opposed to the signature cocktail, especially if the signature cocktail has something in it that I don't really like grapefruit juice. So just that's something to keep in mind. But if your signature cocktails are the only cocktails being served, then people are more likely to drink them. If there's also beer and wine, obviously people are going to drink that too, but it's just a way to manage the options, is to have the signature cocktail. So how you go about choosing your signature cocktail, it depends on a few things. So first things first, do you have a favorite cocktail? Do you have a go-to drink that you like to get when you're out, or it's kind of your standby when you're at home? Or is there a drink that played a role in your first date or your engagement or something like that? So that's the easy place to start, is whether you have a favorite cocktail. If you don't have a particular favorite cocktail, do you have a favorite liquor? Are you a huge whiskey fan, or do you really like tequila, or, is gin your jam, so to speak? So once you narrow it down either to a drink or to a kind of liquor, then you can go from there. I recommend having 2 signature cocktails with different base spirits. So usually one clear spirit like a gin or vodka or white rum or tequila blanco, and then the other one be a brown spirit like whiskey or bourbon or rye or dark or spiced rum or a tequila reposado, which is just aged tequila. So tequila reposado is more brown in color, whereas tequila blanco is white because it's unaged, so it's just a clear spirit. So one clear or light and one dark is, generally speaking, the way to go. And also think about sweetness of the drinks. So if you're gonna do something that has bourbon in it, bourbon is sweeter than like a rye or a Scotch whiskey. Or if you're doing something with Saint-Germain, which is so sweet, I don't even like it, it's too sweet, or something that has quite a bit of simple syrup in it, then that's your sweet drink. And then you might want to offset that drink with something that's a little more herbaceous or bitter, just so you don't have 2 drinks that are both sweet. So like if you're doing an old fashioned, which involves both a sugar cube and bourbon, so it's a rather sweet drink, then maybe do a Negroni, which is very bitter because it's made with gin and Campari. And Campari is an Amaro. Amaro is basically a generic category for Italian liqueur that is bitter. So the Negroni is very bitter and is like the polar opposite cocktail-wise of an old-fashioned. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about which 2 cocktails you want to serve. Also think about what time of year it is. So if you're getting married in the summer and it's going to be hot, you probably want something that's more on the refreshing side, like a mojito or a Tom Collins or a whiskey highball. Mojito, white rum and mint and soda and simple syrup, and a Tom Collins is gin and lemon juice and simple syrup. Very refreshing. A whiskey highball is basically just whiskey with soda water, and it's served in a tall glass. And so it's a dark spirit, it's whiskey, but it's not heavy because it's totally lightened up by the club soda that's in it. But if it's autumn and it might be maybe a little chilly, it's getting dark a little earlier, maybe you want something on the heavier side, like the old fashioned or a dark and stormy or a Moscow Mule, both of which involve ginger beer. Moscow Mule is vodka and ginger beer. Dark and Stormy is rum and ginger beer. So those are good. I mean, they're still cold because they're Dark and Stormy and Moscow Mule are both served over ice. So they're still going to be a cold drink, but they're just a little bit heavier. An old fashioned is generally served over like 1 large ice cube, not a whole bunch of ice. So it's definitely more of a warm you up drink because it's pretty high in alcohol. So also think about the time of year when it comes to garnishes, because you need to think about what's in season. So if you're getting married in May, you don't want to serve a cocktail with an apple garnish because apples are not in season. Same thing with berries. If you want a berry garnish and you're getting married in October, nothing's going to taste very good. So Pinterest is a big problem when it comes to this, because you can sometimes see something on Pinterest that you really like and then not realize that it's not going to work for your season. I actually just had this problem a few weeks ago. The bride found a cocktail on Pinterest that she loved, and it involved a plum garnish. It was a plum thyme prosecco smash, and it involved muddled plums. And at the time we chose the cocktail, plums were in season. It was no problem. But literally 2 weeks later, when the wedding rolled around and we had to buy the ingredients for the drink, couldn't find plums anywhere. Like literally 2 weeks made the difference. So we had to just change it to apples because it was October and it was apple season. So we changed it from plums to apples, and it still worked fine, but it just hadn't occurred to us that 2 weeks from then we weren't going to be able to get plums, which was kind of insane. But definitely think about that. Something else that Pinterest can be a problem with is a lot of the drinks on there A lot of the drinks on Pinterest come from food blogs, food and drink blogs, and those bloggers are not talking about recipes that are scalable for weddings. They're talking about making 2, maybe 4 cocktails at the most. So you might fall in love with the look of a cocktail and your bartender's just like, this is not gonna work because we can't make, 100 of these at short notice when everybody rushes the bar immediately after the ceremony is over. So you definitely need to keep it on the simple side. Anything that can be pre-batched, made ahead of time, and then just combined as people order it is the way to go. Definitely talk to your bartenders or your caterers or your wedding planner, whoever is helping you with your wedding. Talk to them about what you're thinking, and they can tell you whether it's feasible for the number of guests that you are having at your wedding. And then if you want to limit the options, but you don't want to necessarily limit as far as just having 2 drinks, you can also just choose 2 spirits to have on hand and buy a few mixers. So for example, if you got vodka and whiskey, so you've got a light spirit and a dark spirit, and then you could get soda water, tonic water, ginger beer, cranberry juice, simple syrup, lemon juice, and then a couple of fruit garnishes, like some fresh cranberries and maybe some orange peels and maybe a couple of other little things. That would give your bartenders a lot of flexibility to make a whole bunch of drinks just with 2 different spirits, vodka and whiskey, and a handful of mixers. So that's another way to go if you don't want to do a full bar, but you don't want to just have 2 drinks, full stop. And then I just wanted to share a few of the most popular signature cocktails, because even though people want to inject their personality and personalize their wedding, a lot of them, funnily enough, end up choosing the exact same cocktails as everybody else. So if you really want to be original and be different, steer clear of these. The single most popular signature cocktail is an old fashioned, hands down. It's pretty versatile. A lot of people like them, and when I was talking about Negronis earlier, those are an acquired taste. Not everybody likes a Negroni because they are incredibly bitter. I like Negronis, but I'm bitter too, so I guess that's why I like them. But most people like old fashions because the bourbon and the sugar, they're kind of sweet. They're also pretty easy to pre-batch, so it's a very popular choice. And a French 75, that is another hugely popular choice. I love a French 75. Gin and champagne, what's not to love? In fact, I'm pretty sure my signature cocktail at my wedding was a French 75. So those are the 2 most popular. Other hugely popular choices are Greyhounds, Palomas, Manhattans, Moscow Mules, Dark and Stormies, Margaritas, and Cosmopolitans. And then here in Sacramento, there's actually a drink called a white linen that I had never heard of until I moved here. And it turns out it's because it's kind of a local favorite. It was invented by a bartender based here in Sacramento and popularized at one of our local bars. And it's gin based, and it involves cucumbers and lemon juice. I'm not exactly sure what else is in it. I don't think I've ever had one, but it's very popular here in Sacramento. A lot of Sacramento area brides choose the white linen as their signature cocktail. So if you want to be different, don't choose that. Choose something else. But I mean, whatever. If you really like the white linen, choose the white linen. Again, it's all about what you like. So that's what I have to say about signature cocktails. And next week I will be back to talk about wine and how to choose wine for your wedding. I will talk to you then. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks.